Alright, welcome back. Just finished up discussing our picks 10 through 6, and we are now here for the coveted top 5 list. We had some great matches in the previous, but here we are. Sir, starting off strong, what was your number 5 on the year?
My number 5 match for 2023. We're going to London again, this time for All In. I'm building suspense, Jack. A lot happened in this eventful card, but I'm giving the number 5 slot to Samoa Joe, kicking the ever-living crud out of CM Punk. And I'll tell you, Jack, that match was already good to begin with on the first watch. Then the news came out. Then the stories came out about all the drama backstage, and the story kept changing, Jack. Did it happen right after this match? Did it happen later in the night? Did it happen before the match? And what I like to think, Jack, is that it happened right before they go out. And you got to watch it again with that in mind. Because if Samoa Joe had seen everything CM Punk had done, right, what he was responsible for, and then they went out and had that match, everything he does to CM Punk has so much more weight to it. He's going to beat him out of this company. That swing into the commentary table, right? All the suplexes. So good. CM Punk wins the thing, right? He goes, waves goodbye to everybody who knew for how long and where he was going next. But this match, Jack, it was something else.
Yeah, definitely a crazy match. Always will wish that things worked out for the better, but at this point, all you can do is move on, because after all the discourse from the previous year's encounter, you're just left worn out and just wanting to see both sides move on.
Cry me a river, Jack.
Don't even get me started on that man potentially being the devil in AEW.
The devil!
You talked in the previous episode about them losing the plot. I'm sorry, but that is losing the plot if that's what this whole build-up is to.
I likened, in my mind, Jack Perry to Dave Finlay in New Japan. But somebody made an even better comparison on a YouTube channel I watched. They said, Jack Perry is the Lexus King of AEW.
Oh, man.
Who's your number 5?
You ready for this, sir?
Yeah.
My number 5 is Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay from Wrestle Kingdom 17.
Jack, did you see Jesus wrestle this year or something? What the heck? We at number 5, Jack?
I know, I wrote gasp. It's not number 1. It's not even top 3. It's not the Forbidden Door match.
Gunther's number 10, and this match is number 5. My word. Tell me, Jack, what'd you like about this match? So much that you put it right in the middle.
So, for me, I look for a lot of different things in wrestling, and obviously that criteria is going to change depending on different situations. For me, what it came down to, and what I'll ultimately argue in a whole separate video, but when it comes to this Wrestle Kingdom bout, there's just a few things that I think put it above the Forbidden Door match, in my opinion. The first and foremost thing, long have I been the biggest advocate of the fact that presentation is what matters most in wrestling, and there's no better presentation this year than the entrances of this match, where you get Kenny Omega coming out to One Winged Angel in the freaking Tokyo Dome. And of course he has the smuggest of grins on his face, knowing that he just got this entrance. And then you have Will Ospreay coming out to Elevated, cladded in emerald and gold, surrounded by his United Empire family. It's an image of a lifetime.
And he doesn't come out to his recent song. He brings back the other one.
Yeah. And secondly, the United Empire know their role in this match, unlike Don Callis and his antics in the Forbidden Door match, with his interference. For me, the United Empire actually add to this match, because you see the different emotions and expressions on their face. as they stand there watching their leader get battered and humiliated, you know, like they
Yes.
just stand there with these different expressions as they watch, you know, Ospreay just get beat. And I think, you know, what it also comes down to at the end is just, I think the story and match are a bit better, you know, like we start with this sort of even matchup at the start with both men sort of going move for move until Omega decides to go psycho on Ospreay and starts brutalizing him with the table. He bashes his head into the exposed metal on the turnbuckle. And one of my favorite shots from this match is when Omega's going for, I forget which move it is, but yeah, it's the one where he runs the ropes to hit the knee. You just see that last sort of like desperate leg grab from Ospreay, just trying anything to buy him time. And then of course you got a plethora of reversals. Ospreay, I think that's another thing, is the roles in this match with Ospreay being that babyface fighting from underneath and Omega being the heel rather than the vice versa that we saw at Forbidden Door. And there was like one of my favorite images, and like the closing images was like Ospreay being carried out by, you know, the Empire, looking broken and defeated, all while Omega walks out like it was just another Wednesday to him.
What's his name from Street Fighter? Bison, right?
Yeah.
You ever heard that line?
I think so. I think I know what you're talking about.
It's the exact same thing you just said. This guy like ran or something, like, coming after him to avenge his family because he, you know, torched his village like Thanos, like an 80s Thanos. And he goes, that was the most important day of your life. For me, it was just Tuesday. So I know exactly what you described, Jack. That was so well done all around. If I hold back my own commentary, it's because I'm going to talk about this match a little bit later, Jack, and I have so much more to add.
Yeah, and sir, if I just have to say, if I can offer maybe some sort of copium that'll like sort of heal your heart as to like maybe why it lands only at number 5. Maybe it's because Kenny Omega won and proceeded to do nothing with the IWGP US belt afterwards.
Wow. That's like some sincere and some really valid criticism. What happens after? That's incredible, Jack, because I'm about to go off on you saying, what's number 4? Did you find some Shawn Michaels in his prime versus Ric Flair in his prime dream match that never happened? You found that? You were like, this counts?
You know, I have a feeling my number 4 is going to annoy a lot of people because they're going to be like, how the heck does this end up above some of the others? But like,
hey, you ready for you want to see who chose violence today? Here's my number 4. My number 4, we going back to Japan, and it's Shinsuke Nakamura versus the Great Muta on the very first day of the year 2023. It was special, Jack. Shinsuke's never looked better. The Great Muta comes out. You don't know how old he is because of that mask and makeup and how he moves, right? And it was so good. It was incredible, right? And they played the great story of teacher and student or mentor and or just, you know, a wrestler and his number 1 fan, you know?
Yeah.
And the finish, Jack, and the finish with all the mists. That kiss, steals the miss, wins the match. Haven't stopped thinking about it for 360 some days.
Man. Yeah, I remember checking that one out. That was pretty special. And it was funny because I remember a lot of people thinking that Muta was going to pull like what a lot of people do and then like have a match like sometime down the line later, even though like it's supposed to be his retirement.
Yeah, so he retires as the Great Muta here, and then he has a match in February that I didn't see with Naito as Keiji Muto.
Yeah.
Sure was fine.
Yeah. All right, sir. You ready for me to anger people with my number 4?
Go for it.
My number 4 comes from New Japan Pro Wrestling Sakura Genesis. There's a lot of matches to think about. Why am I going to anger people? It was Mercedes Moné versus Azumi versus Hazuki from this show. That was my...
Whoa!
Now, let it be known, I have never been really a big fan of any of the 4 horsewomen, But the reason this match comes up on the list for me is, first off, it was just one of the most fun matches that I had the joy of watching. But the thing that I loved about it the most, and it's not to spoil things, but you're going to sort of see this become a common theme with the top 5 especially, but I really liked the story they were able to tell, especially because of how subtly it was able to tell. Maybe it's just me being the analytical guy that I am, and that I'm like looking too deep into these things, but like it literally just started with, of course, the fact Mercedes Moné leaves WWE. She shows up at Wrestle Kingdom and she throws out matches she wants, and one of the names she lists is Azumi. And that's the simple story beat, is that she wants this match with Azumi, but the story that follows is like, it's so good to me, despite how like subtle and simple it is. It's such a great story that each woman finds a way to contribute to. I don't want to go too much into detail because I don't want to take up too much time. But basically, it's like throughout the entire build, since the moment she showed up, Mercedes has been mispronouncing Azumi's name the entire time because it's spelled A-Z-M. That's how she says it, A-Z-M. And so it builds this whole thing of like she feels disrespected by it. And then they added this. The thing I really loved about this story was they added the real life element into it, where the thing with Azumi is she's only like, I think at the time of recording, she's only like 21. And the crazy part is she's been wrestling for she's been wrestling since I want to say like she was 13. So
that's wild.
She's technically a veteran, but because of her young age, they weren't too confident in her ability to have a standalone match, especially because they were worried because she works a high-speed style that Mercedes wouldn't be able to keep up. So they throw Hazuki in there to be this sort of like mediator of like, let's make it a triple threat so that there's someone who can work that high-speed style but slow it down enough to work a pace for Mercedes. And like I said, I did a whole video on it. If you want to hear like a full breakdown of it, head over to Triple Crown Podcast, plugging in the other channel. I did a whole video on this match, but getting into the actual match itself, like I said, it was just one of the most fun, and I felt it was a match that utilized the triple threat stipulation the best, because it genuinely felt like all 3 women were involved rather than the usual affair we see of like 2 people fighting in the ring while the other one waits their turn on the outside. They just kind of, all 3 were involved. They had such unique sequences. There was a lot of crazy dives. My favorite spot was when Hazuki knocks Monet down to the ground and just starts laying in these forearms. And the last like 2 or 3 are extra stiff as a way to say, welcome to Japan.
Ooh.
And then, like I said, I go more into detail in the video I did on it, but the finish also beautifully complements the story. And like I said, I could just go on for days, especially about my top 5. I could go completely into detail just because of the amount of story in these matches. But that was my number 4.
Make sure to check out Triple Crown and the videos that Jack describes, amongst many others, and then subscribe to my YouTube channel that I'm going to start. My first video is going to be called Exposing Jack, where I'll go in depth as to his claims said on this podcast. And he said Mercedes Moné is a better wrestler than Gunther. He said Mercedes Moné is a better performer and storyteller than Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay combined. That's what he said here, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it. I heard it. Exposing Jack. And I'll put an unflattering photo of you with big text over it as a thumbnail.
Oh man! How about your
one more before we're going into the top 3, right, Jack?
Yeah.
Before we do, right? We're each wearing headphones, and if like you're looking at me, you might think of a Metallica song I might be listening to. You might think of, I don't know, maybe Gunther's and like, we'll all know, Jack, if you ever got a pair of headphones on, anyone's looking at you, we know what you're listening to. You're listening to Money. Money. And your brother's listening to
oh man.
We can go on. We will finish. Number 3, the top 3. These are the what do they call it when you reach this part of the Olympics? You podium, right?
Yeah, the podium finishes.
Jack, we're going back to Wrestle Dream in Seattle, Washington, and I'm giving number 3 to Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr., who put on an absolute clinic. Bryan Danielson put on a very strong performance with Kazuchika Okada at Forbidden Door 2 earlier in the year in what was billed as a dream match. But as soon as they started wrestling, Jack, I realized how different their wrestling styles were, and I thought, oh, no, actually, I want to see him versus Zack Sabre Jr. So we get that match in October, and they go tit for tat, right? They go for broke. They're going to prove who the best wrestler is, and the best. There's so much going on, Jack. One, the fact that Bryan Danielson is going to start, striking him, right? He's going to go for like something outside of pure wrestling. So Zack Sabre Jr. is all up in a puff about, hey, that's not what we agreed upon. But even better than that, Jack, is Nigel McGuinness at commentary doing the same thing, running down Bryan Danielson because they're going to fight it all in 2024, and it's going to be great. And just 2 seats away from Nigel McGuinness is Jon Moxley, who I think was injured, but is going to give the people their money's worth with him swearing on commentary, building up his buddy Bryan Danielson. It was so good. Like, they're surrogates, just like you said that the United Empire, right, were for Will Ospreay, right? If you saw Aaron Henare show any kind of fear or worry for Will, you felt that as a viewer, right? He's a surrogate. We're standing in his corner as well. You felt the same way about Jon Moxley. You're hyped. You're excited. You're out of your seat, wanting, to know once and for all who the best is. Danielson wins, but is he the best? No. They leave enough to the imagination. Oh, it was good. Oh, it was good.
Yeah, I have really been grateful for Nigel's return to commentary. He's done a great job in AEW, and I don't want to speak too soon because I don't know what his medical situation is, but I eagerly await the payoff to all his smack talk on commentary in 2024.
You're ready to say that Mercedes Moné is a better performer than Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness combined, but we don't want to speak too soon.
And don't speak too soon, because at number 3, I have Bryan Danielson versus Ricky Starks.
Wow!
All Out.
The Bryan Danielson tier.
Yeah. So, the same thing I said for number 4 applies here. I've spoken in detail on the other channel. So if you want like a more story breakdown, but to put it shortly here, Ricky Starks is a man that for whatever reason is held under more, pressure, criteria, whatever you want to say, than others, and especially his contemporaries, For him, it's always sink or swim. Anytime he gets a big match, it's this is Ricky Starks' time to prove himself. And it's like every opportunity, he swims. But yet people constantly doubt that ability of his. He's a man who's had to deal with his fair share of frustrating booking. And, things seemingly didn't look to get better when his dance partner for All Out leaves him hanging out to dry. But, the thing I love the most is rather than try and ignore it and rather try and work around it, they let Starks go out there in the build to this match, pour out his heart and his frustrations in a promo. He was dealt the worst hand, and yet he always has to come out and try and make the best of it, and have to prove people wrong. And then from there, him and Bryan Danielson just go out and have one of the best matches of the year on a 1-day notice, Just absolutely incredible. The pure brutality of this strap match, nothing sticks in my mind more than when Danielson is whipping Starks and one of them catches Starks right across the mouth. The visual of Starks looking defeated when he's just like, he's whipping Danielson and Danielson's just looking up at him like, is this seriously all you got? And he almost gives up for a moment but then starts to fight back. And the story element I love the most from this match is when Danielson is striking Starks with the strap, and he's telling him, "Are you going to take it?" And it's meant to symbolize not only the violence that is occurring in this match, him striking him over and over with the strap, but it's almost like he's asking him, are you going to continue taking the real life treatment that you've been experiencing? Are you just going to lie there and allow yourself to be doubted and passed over? Or are you going to stand out from the rest and do something about it? And of course, he gets back up even after all those strikes. And the finish includes some of the best expression work and that we've seen of the year, where when Danielson's choking out Starks with the strap, he just kind of turns to the camera and softly mouths no before fading away, like symbolizing that he may lose, but he didn't give up, and just in the same way, Starks may have lost, but it was literally like a star-making performance, and it happened on like 1 day's notice. Obviously, they likely planned stuff as soon as they fired CM Punk, but like, it's the fact that they brought in Danielson on such short notice. They weren't able to do any sort of long-term build between their two characters, and yet they were able to do such a great story and match out of it.
Consider all of that, Jack, and the additional layer or factor that Bryan Danielson was basically fighting that whole match with one arm because of how recent that match with Okada was and his breaking his arm. He said it in the press conference afterwards, how proud he was of the match, how proud he was of Ricky and everybody, right? Really doing damage control for that other guy, and all the things he said, right? He'd say, hey, this place is doing great and it's full of a lot of great people. He said to pull the curtain back more than I'm comfortable doing, right? There's a lot of smoke and mirrors, a lot of things that they did, right? Really distracts you from what they're not doing. And that, because they wondered, like, are you okay? What he said after the fact was basically, no, but we got it done. And they told an incredible story.
Yeah, definitely. And, of course, I got to shout it out. They used the Final Countdown as his entrance theme.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. They sure did. Yeah, that was the first time they did it.
Well, no, they used it during the Okada match. That one doesn't make it on my list.
That's it, yes.
I wish there was a way to go back in time and have my dad record my reaction, because I'm just sitting there, and my friends were, like, some of my friends were watching along, so I'm, like, talking with them, and then out of nowhere, I just hear, like, the drums start coming in, like, in that entrance where it's, like, dun, dun, like that, and I'm like, wait. And then I look towards the TV, and I just hear the iconic opening in that Okada match, and I literally, like, almost jump out of my seat, and I'm like, they got it. But, yeah, they bring it back here. I'm hoping they use it as a sort of, like, big match sort of thing, like, this is his theme for the big matches, but also at the same time, I understand that the price tag might not justify it being a big match sort of thing.
I love Tony Khan in the press conference, like, citing data, going, I wish the band knew just how profitable it is for them to let us use it as often as we do, right? There's no doubt spikes in searches for the song after people heard it,
Yeah.
Math is gonna math. Everybody make sure to tune into Jack's other YouTube channel when he does tier lists for AEW theme songs and AEW, Ring of Honor, New Japan theme songs, where Final Countdown is A tier, but S tier is money. Money.
By your logic, you're gonna get my dad on my case, because he's gonna think that by that, like, by putting it in that spot, I'm saying that theme is better than One Winged Angel.
I didn't hear you place it anywhere. We're at number 2. Here we go, Jack. The penultimate match, 2023, and for me, it goes to WrestleMania Night 2 here in Los Angeles. It's the Intercontinental Champion Gunther, where he belongs, at the top, defending his title against two big, strong lads. In my notes, Jack, I wrote, there's 50% more beef in this match than at Clash of the Castle. You loved Clash of the Castle. You know what you needed, though? More meat. And so they threw in a third giant man, and all the story that you described earlier, Jack, the fact that Drew, Sheamus want this title, right? Yeah. It was hard-hitting, It was a Gunther match times 2 with both competitors going for Baroque. And it was a real standout for the night. You know, I think WrestleMania 2 was the lesser of the two nights, but this was definitely a highlight. I feel like, if I remember correctly, it was also sponsored obnoxiously, but that did not deter. Gunther comes out looking like an absolute beast.
Yeah.
Beginning, throughout the middle, and at the end.
Our wrestling champion, no Roman Reigns over here. All right. You ready for my number 2, sir?
Number 2. I don't know if I can be ready, Jack. I have been thrown for an absolute emotional roller coaster this podcast.
So, for my number 2, since June, my top 2 matches had pretty much remained unchanged.
Interesting.
For months, my number 2 was Jon Moxley versus Hangman Adam Page Texas Death Match from AEW Revolution.
I think I know where this is going.
In all honesty, the match could, and some would argue should, still be on this list. But like I said, I don't like repeats of stipulations, wrestlers, being in the same match and all that. But so you ask yourself, how do you improve upon Jon Moxley versus Hangman Adam Page in the Texas Death Match? Well, I'll tell you for one, it's being in person for a Texas Death Match. With that, my number 2 is Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Adam Page Texas Death Match at AEW Full Gear. Not only is it 2 of my favorite guys right now, but it's the story for me. And like I said, if you haven't been able to tell at this point, this top 5 is all about the stories to me. The stories are what elevate each and every single one of these matches. This whole feud started off as Strickland wanting to take Page's spot in AEW, believing he didn't want it, so why can't he have it? And yet it spiraled into each man wanting to take each other's life. It involved a home invasion of Swerve going in and giving Hangman's Child a Mogul Embassy shirt. It spiraled into this blood feud. And being able to watch this in person was special, and being able to watch it back to see the things that you miss when you're watching in person was even better. The levels of violence and brutality from each man was just mind-blowing to me. You had cinder blocks, you had glass shards, you had barbed wire and barbed wire chairs, you name it. I understand that, the interference at the end might not be as keen to others. I know I mentioned I wasn't too keen of Don Callis' interference in the Forbidden Door match, but here, it's very minimal, but it also adds to it. And the finish alone is a star-making performance to me. Like I mentioned, the same thing with Ricky Starks. At the start of the year, it was Adam Page, choking out Jon Moxley, forcing him to submit. And at the end of the year, it is Swerve Strickland hanging the Hangman, choking the very lifeblood of AEW, and yet very much on character with AEW's main protagonist. Hangman fights until the end and never submits, gets choked out, and after a year full of chaos, Swerve Strickland solidifies himself as wrestling's villain with all his crazy antics this year, from bloodying Nick Wayne in his own home to home invading Hangman's house. And like I said, the finish is just insane, seeing him hang the Hangman. He hung the Hangman, and like I said, the levels of violence in this match were insane. That's my number 2.
Wow. I'm excited, Jack, to hear everything you shared. Love that this is a match you got to see in person at a last minute notice. And I'm excited for Swerve. Another Swerve match that I was going to put in was All In, the casket match. I think this, his matches with Hangman Page, stand head and shoulders above everything else he's done.
Yeah, he's had some great work this year. Like, I will go on note, I don't want to spoil too much, but like, him and Hangman are like in that contention for me this year of like feud of the year, wrestlers of the year, they just did some great work with each other. And, another thing that improves it, like I said, it's 2 of my favorites. I've enjoyed both men's work for the longest time, and to see them pair up was special. And though it kind of can be a fault of some feuds, the craziest thing of this feud was seeing how divided the fans were because of how much they love both these guys.
Ooh. I'm listening to Cultaholics Jack King's top 10. You know, he's been doing top 10 every month, and he's going to do it every year. And the Gunther triple threat has been his number one since WrestleMania. I wonder how close this match comes to the top spot on his list.
But speaking of top spots, we are now at our top spot, the number one, the coveted number one. Sir, what do you have?
Mercedes Moné versus that woman she fought at Battle of the Valley in January. I'm just kidding, Jack. No, my number one, Wrestle Kingdom 17, Tokyo, Japan. Kenny Omega and that smug look you talked about and described that is one wing versus the defending United States champion Will Ospreay. Jack, the only note I wrote here is the word tragedy. Everything you said earlier when you said it too soon and more. Have you ever seen The Godfather, Jack?
Yeah.
Remember Sonny's death scene? Remember how Sonny dies?
Yeah.
That toll booth, right? It's more than just he dies, Jack. He was set up. Our boy Will Ospreay was set up, Jack. This match, maybe more than any other on the list, made me feel... If Timothy Thatcher sparked joy and pride in me, this one was all just vitriol and frustration, and how dare you do this to him? How are you doing this to him? Because just as you described, Jack, it was a back and forth for the third, and then Kenny Omega just turns it on, the blankety blanker. He just doesn't stop. It's the Simpsons meme. Stop. He's already dead. And I just can't fathom it, Jack. I'm like, how are you doing this to this guy? After everything he's done, after all this build, how are you going to just give this to Kenny Omega? And the reality sets in, Jack, the day after when people on their Talking Head podcast go, I think he's going to take a much-needed break. Will Ospreay's been nonstop since like 2020, through the pandemic and back. And I'm like, that's it, isn't it? That's it. He just needs a break. That break don't last more than a month and a half, I don't think. Yeah. But I was so blown away by that match. And I think it is definitely better than the Forbidden Door match because of everything you said, too. Don Callis ruined it for me, right? Those two security guards who do literally nothing, right? Just distract. Will Ospreay gets that win. He's vindicated. That Tiger Driver, though, you know?
Yeah.
But this one, this one is just so artistic. You know, if that one in the summer is a summer blockbuster, this one is like a dark Gothic poem played out in front of that audience at the Tokyo Dome.
And one thing I forgot to mention with my thing too is I know it likely wasn't the case for you, but it was the case for me. There's something special about watching a match like that at 2-3 in the morning because you're wanting to watch it live so none of it gets spoiled for you. There's nothing like watching it, because that's what I did. I was like, I want to watch this live. So I was sitting there waiting through the entirety of Wrestle Kingdom for this match. And it's no disrespect to who was it? Okada and Jay White. Were they the main event? It's no disrespect to them. But the moment Ospreay and Omega ended, I was like, I'm going to bed.
That's my relationship with a lot of Okada matches, really. You know, the build-up and everything. I go, oh, it is late. I am tired and I am spent. But like just everything you said, Jack, that smug look at the beginning, and that he just turns it on this OP, like this like cheat code. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was unfair. It was so unfair. And then the United Empire guys, like these big guys, just showing all the fear and care and worry for their leader. You know,
like, it's exactly like you said. Like
They were powerless, Jack. Like there were 6 guys out there, and then there was one, and that one's all you need, apparently. Like I wish they're like New Day. I wish they'd cheat. I wish they'd jump in. How are you gonna be a multi-man faction and lose like this? Come on now.
Yeah, and like you said, it's like that's the other thing that adds to that story. Is like they're keeping it fair for so long, like a third of that match, they're just going tit for tat and all that, and then Omega just decides, yeah, I'm gonna put this table on you while you're laying on the ground. And I'm gonna stomp through it.
The table stop.
And then afterwards, he gets the table back. He's like, oh, look, it's already broken. Let me bash your face into it and break it even more because this is just how much I hate you for no reason at all.
For no reason at all. And when you describe, Jack, that V-trigger, but the one with the extra run, and you know what I mean? Like, he's like telling not just Will Ospreay, but me. He's telling me, Jack, I'm going to hit him so hard with my knee, you're going to feel it. And it was so bad.
Yeah.
My number one.
Oh, all right. Ready for my number one, sir?
I don't think I'll ever be, but let's do it.
All right. So, again, I've basically, with the top, well, except for number 2, and obviously number 5 is one that I'm going to work on, but like top 5, let's see, number 4, number 3, and number 1, I've done videos on. So I don't want to go into too much detail with this match, but at the same time, I just feel like not going into detail and preventing the spoilers for this match is disingenuous to describing why I have it as my number 1. But like I've been saying for the past 5 entries, you know, the story is why these matches are in this top 5, and that cannot be better spoken than for this one. You know, throughout this list, I've said so many things about these matches. I've been saying this is the best visual, this is the best visual of the year, there's no better story than this. But to be completely honest with you, I was lying, because to me there is no better single piece of media from this year than this match. You know, people are always like, oh, where does his allegiance lie, sir? Is he a WWE drone? Is he an AEW shill? But just like I said last year, I will forever and always be a Stardom soldier. At number 1, it is a battle between 2 factions from Stardom. It is Queen's Quest versus Oedo Tai in a steel cage match from Stardom Sunshine, where the stipulation is whoever's the last one in the cage has to leave their faction. And so the great thing about this match, you know, I have to mention, from the very beginning, since I've gotten into Stardom, my ties have been to the faction Queen's Quest. For the longest time, I have sung the praises of Saya Kamitani. For the longest time, ever since I got into Stardom, I have preached that Utami Hayashishita is the best women's wrestler on the planet. The connection between these two as a tag team is unlike any other in wrestling. And the entire build to this match encapsulates years. It includes the story beat of Momo Watanabe, who is now a part of Oedo Tai, being the only leader to leave their faction when she turned on Queen's Quest back in 2021 to join Oedo Tai, the opposing faction that they're now facing. There's history between both the leaders of this faction. And the story going into it is whether Utami is fit to be a leader, and it's only been building because of the fact that her past couple of months she's had issues with her tag partner Saya, and it also builds upon the fact that she had, you know, like year-long reign with their top belt in 2021. And then all of 2022 was like she took a backseat, like she wasn't doing much. She wasn't winning really important matches. And at the start of this year, they lost the Trios tournament that Stardom held. They unsuccessfully challenged for the Trios title. And so it's this whole thing of they've been having these issues as a team. And, you know, people are questioning, is she fit to be the leader of this faction? Is she being selfish in her manner? Is her faction just not believing in her? And the thing is, with the stipulation that anyone, or that the last member could be expelled, it leaves this whole story beat of being wide open, of like, there's various options. It could be the leader that leaves, it could be Saya that leaves, it could be someone from the other faction that leaves. The match itself has very great action, which is crazy to think because it's a match that has 10 people, so it can be a bit chaotic at some points, but it's still pretty great. There's great weapon spots involving a briefcase, a bat, ladders, tables. There's blood as Utami channels her inner Jon Moxley and wears the crimson mask. But like I said, the whole story of this match is with Utami, and she's trying to prove to herself and to her faction and the fans that she is worthy of being a leader. So it's shown in simple spots where, like, when one of her faction members is trying to escape the cage, she's there holding an opposing Oedo Tai member so that they don't interfere with her member's escape. There's a spot where her faction member, Lady C, injures her back. So Utami literally hoists her onto her shoulders and climbs up and helps her escape the cage that way. Despite their past issues, she helps out her tag partner escape the cage before she can, and it leaves her to fend off 2 against 1. And it all comes to a climax at the top of the cage when Utami's there trying to escape, and she's met with the former leader and former Queen's Quest member Momo Watanabe and her tag partner Saya Kamitani. And Watanabe, who uses a baseball bat, she hands it to Kamitani. And Kamitani's just sitting there staring at this bat, thinking about everything that's been going on the past couple of months between her and her tag partner Utami, questioning, does she make the choice? Is she going to turn on her faction? Is she going to finally let her frustration and anger take over? But instead, what follows, as I put in the video that I described, what follows is love taking over, and what is one of the best payoffs of the year for me as someone who's been watching Stardom for quite some time. She takes that bat and hits Momo Watanabe with it. She chooses loyalty and love for her leader rather than hate and anger, which is basically everything that Oedo Tai represents. And you get the best visual of the year. There's a photo of it. It's really great because there's like this like camera flash in the background that makes it look like, you know, as if the sun is glaring through it. But you see her helping a bloody Utami climb the cage. There's this picture perfect moment of the two of them sharing a moment at the top of the cage, and she helps her escape, securing the win and keeping Queen's Quest intact. You get this post-match like promo between the group where it's a whole emotional roller coaster where they finally embrace their leader. They have this cool like dog pile sort of hug on their leader. It's a story about learning to trust and believe in one another. And as the fans have been saying for the past 2 years, as all these issues have been going on, we finally get the answer that yes, Queen's Quest is fine. They're fine. There's no breakup, you know. And again, it's the whole bias of me and Stardom, but it's just one of the best stories I've watched all year unfold in one of the best matches I've seen all year.
What month was that, Jack?
This happened in June.
In June. Did you tell me about this match when it happened? Am I recalling the other match you described from 2021 where that jump happened?
I think that might have been 2022.
Like, I'm trying to think if you've told me about this match, right? But like, there was so much familiarity. I wondered, am I remembering the 2022 match? And what a roller coaster I've been on, even just through these lists and these discussions.
And sir, I'm sorry for taking up so much time. I don't mean to rush you, but there is 1:15 left. Any final words?
Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, Gunther, along at the top. But I appreciate everything you shared about your number one. That was a very vindicated number one.
Yeah, and like always, you know, I'm always glad to hear Mr. Solis's matches. I'm always glad to see the contrast of opinions, especially with the different companies and different tastes we have. And always at the end, we always just enjoy it, you know, and that's what wrestling is about, man, is enjoying the fact that we all have different tastes, you know?
Yeah.
But with that being said, with 35 seconds left, I hope you all enjoyed this chaotic top 10 that could be seen as blasphemous in some people's eyes. Thank you all for joining. Obviously, we look forward to next year with the matches to come as each year just gets better than the year before. But with that being said, I've been Jack, joined by
Mr. Solis.
Thank you all for joining, and as always, wish you Merry Christmas, a happy New Year's, happy holidays, whatever it is. Enjoy the time of the year, and thank you all for joining for this episode.